Kibule, what's up? So this is the beginning of my book journal. So how I figure I'm going to do it is read a chapter a day of both books, write down what I thought about them, sleep on it, and come back the next day, record what if I've thought of anything different or whatever I have to say about it, and then read another chapter and continue, so on and so forth. So for the first books in my journal, I'm going to read A Game of Thrones by George R. Martin and The Great Conversation by Robert M. Hitchins. That's the first book in the Great Books of the Western World series. And yeah, so I read the prologue to Game of Thrones last night. Yeah, it was pretty good. I didn't think it was very difficult to read or the characters hard to understand. It feels kind of like I'm going back to the 90s with the themes, with the fantasy themes, and it's a product of its time. And I gotta say, I wasn't a big fan of those themes back in the days. Zombies and stuff, like whatever. But they were really popular. And maybe they're not zombies. I don't know. I'm gonna keep reading, obviously. Yeah, some of the themes and stuff that I picked up on, I guess, were the quality of the characters, right? And like a honor bound and case system based setting. Those are going to be there, sure. And the ideas that I'm thinking of that play with that are mortality and how death is around you. You don't know when it's going to just spring up and claim somebody, even if you kind of like go out and look for it. You don't know when it's going to come and get you or the people around you. The fallout from that and how you live your life in a setting like that, and a little bit of the selfishness of people. Maybe they don't follow through on the things they're supposed to do or the things that are expected of them. And is life worth it? I would say yeah, but we'll see. Yeah, I liked it. It was good. Let's read the next chapter today. I also read the preface of The Great Conversation. And yeah, it's basically essays or an argument for education, reading books to be educated, an argument for classics, books that have been around for a very long time, read by other people, written by other people, I guess, written by people, I should say, that wrote something in conversation with them, obviously, the title of the book. And I do agree with some of it, of like, you need to be in a constant sense of wanting to be educated, curious and hungry for questions that come up. And yeah, I thought it was good. And it's the thing that makes me wonder of like, they say, you should question stuff you hear and you should look and do your own research kind of stuff. And I agree with that. So I read chapter 2, Bran. I noticed that it doesn't actually call it each entry a chapter, so I wonder what's up with that. Yeah, I like this much better than the prelogue. I can see where some people say that the writing's really good. Yeah, it is really good. I like the Starks, the dire wolves that, show up towards the end of the chapters. An interesting plot. I'll see where that goes. I like how the events of the prelogue actually matter to this. I thought I was going to have to wait a while. And yeah, I'm excited to see where the next chapter goes. I also read the next entry. This one is chapter 1 of The Great Conversation. The message is, I guess, there's a grandiose and great tradition in the West of having a dialogue and a discussion about many topics and virtues and values, and they're neither good or bad, I guess, and they keep mulling them over, and they in themselves shape, I guess, our traditions and stuff, our values. You know, yeah, for the most part, I can agree. Excited to read the actual collection of books, but since I'm reading the whole thing, I can't just skip this. I do wonder, though, if the tradition of this great conversation of a liberal education is really good. Why did we stop using it? I'm pretty sure he'll, as it continue on, explain it to me. I hope so, at least. Let's read. So I'm still figuring this thing out. I'm trying some new ideas. And I figured, add a little bit more journal to this book journal stuff. Yeah, I did the book 2 newbie tag yesterday. Some of the questions I feel were meh, but that's something I think is good for a type of interview or list thing, to not have it just be a bunch of questions you line up for yourself. So overall, I thought it was pretty interesting. Yeah, went and had some McDonald's today. I thought it was interesting that they're doing this Grinch thing, and like the Grinch is everywhere this year, this holiday season. Like, is he public domain now or something? Or have we just solidified him as something for, I guess, this generation? I don't know. All right. So, yesterday, I read the next entry of the Game of Thrones. I'm also pick this up from the book tag. Do this now. See how this works. The chapter is called Caitlin. I think that's how that's pronounced. Yeah, it was a softer chapter, for sure, filling in some of the lore, some of the setting. Yeah, Caitlin was an interesting character. Seeing her and Ned was, interesting. I like the characters. Yeah, let's see where this goes. There's a lot of talk of prophecy and omens and the gods, the woods and stuff. Let's see how that goes. And I also read the next chapter, chapter 3, well, chapter 2, excuse me, of The Great Conversation, titled Modern Times. On this chapter, he talks about how we got to the modern education system that we are using currently, still today, even though I think this was written in the 50s or so, about how that liberal education was outdated because, written by a bunch of old guys from an older time. And so what good are those ideas? We need a more modern education, they thought, that would be for offering people the tools and some ideas for living in the kind of stuff that they thought they would be dealing with. There's something called sociological determinism, where it's some kind of education, I guess, where you're taught how to have a vocation and do things for modern times, industrial times, and how students and young people should have hands-on experience with the vocations they want to see if they really like them. And that's fine and all for certain kinds of studies and fields. But other ones, you really can't do that without actually doing the dangerous and risky kind of vocations and occupations that those have. And that's not really something you want for a couple of teens, younger people even. Maybe not. So the idea that he brings up a person called John Dewey and democracy and education, something that he wrote about those ideas. Maybe they're not ever actually put into full effect because it just be a little too dangerous. So maybe that's not what he meant, right? And how this kind of education makes us good workers, but not really full-rounded humans, healthy people for a healthy society. Yeah, I know my education was not really the best. So I can kind of see that too, where we were taught to be tools. At least that's what it felt like. Not really taught to be respectable people. I may have gotten a lot of this wrong, but well, that's this experiment for me. Yo, what's up? Man, today was a cold one. Anyways, I read the latest entry in the Game of Thrones. Daenerys, I think it's pronounced Daenerys. Yeah, this chapter was a lot darker, seemed full of poison and toxic relationships. Not really a fan of Daenerys's brother, Viserys. Visceral, maybe? Maybe I'm pronouncing that wrong. It seemed like what little bit of that past really twisted and tormented his reality. That's all he cares about is vindictiveness and political maneuvering. Whereas Daenerys barely knows any of that, and yet has like a much clearer morality. She has her priorities straight. I would say it was kind of like these people are victims, and the way that victims of those kinds of circumstances, violence, and all that whole entire world shifting and changing at that age, kind of leaves people. But yeah, interesting chapter. Good. I also, of course, read the Great Conversation, Education and Economics. It's a C, looks like an L, huh? Ew. But yeah, chapter 3, I believe. As the title goes, it's about how can you both have time for education and for a job, and what that does to a society's economy. And he makes some good points where, like, it's valid to ask these kinds of questions and how much should one go for over the other. But the idea that if our society is ill equipped to govern, then is it really a good government? And yeah, I can see some kind of really bad parallels today with our economy, our education, our government. But yeah, I agree where we need to have an educated populace to make educated decisions. And a government that doesn't give us a good education is not going to be a really good government for us. We're not going to be able to run it well. Yeah, I didn't want to talk about politics and stuff, but that's the book. Okay, let's do some reading on a Friday. So the next chapter that I read in Game of Thrones is Eddard, which I guess is long for Ned. In this chapter, Robert Targaryen and Eddard Stark, you get to see those two characters interact with each other after a while apart. You can really tell what kind of relationship and friendship they had. Yeah, it's really good. The genre feels like it's coming right off the page. Even if this would be the only chapter you ever read, you would be able to understand what's going on, what the stakes are, and just that after a while, even after being apart and being under new circumstances, having new relationships, and being in a whole new comfort of life, how lucky and how fortunate you are to have a friend that can really come in through more than family or responsibilities, people who look up to you, like employees and that kind of stuff. Just having a friend that's there. That's I could tell that Robert is actually really lucky to have someone like Ned. And I also read the next entry in The Great Conversation. What a title. The Disappearance of Liberal Education. Yeah. This one, it's really kind of analyzing education, the schools, and how we grow up spending so much time at least here in America, in school, and really the shame, the pain of it not really helping to educate many people, where it's more like glorified daycare. At least that's how I really felt it growing up, and it's kind of what he's saying, and how the old ways were thrown out because a bunch of stuffy guys and their, that image of the stuffy professor with the, oh, you have to learn Greek and Latin, and this is the, it's more about memorizing a poem or something than really like the guts of what you're reading, and how that's no good, and how, like, yeah, you can throw that out. I think so, at least. But at the same time, standardized testing, the just can you do the bare minimum and get out kind of education that we have today is also just not helping anybody to become a real person, like a healthy human, a healthy adult. And also how like that kind of weakening of our understanding of things around us really can be really dangerous when we have a more and more pervasive means of getting messages into people, into their face, than really teaching people how to really think for themselves, and to, it's more important what's being said than the fact that something is being said at all. And maybe that's not exactly what he had in mind, but that's the way I took it. Yeah. All right. I'll see you Sunday. Happy Sunday. Hope your Sunday is going well. So I read John yesterday, and in this chapter entry, we focus on Jon Snow, a character I'm sure we're going to be following from memes and stuff I'm sure I've seen. Yeah, in this one we get to see the cast of characters from Targaryens to Starks and other people, Lannisters, from Jon's point of view. We get to see the outsiders like Jon and his uncle and his wolf and Tyrion, which is one of the Lannisters. Yeah, we get to see that Jon is still a kid, really, wanting to do stuff and being ready to just run out and be an adult, or those around him are still like, nah, enjoy your youth and grow up a little first before doing stuff that you can't take back. The interaction between Jon and Tyrion is really interesting. See where that goes. And I also read yesterday the next entry in the Great Conversation, which is experimental science. Look at that, barely fitting on page. And this is where I'm kind of breaking ranks a little bit with the author. He is trying to make the argument that modern science, experimental science, that he's trying to separate from the scientific method, isn't all there is with our reason and logic and the things that can't be explained by it, all the agnostic questions like higher beings, gods, life after death, those kinds of things, and that it's not a fit-all to everything. And I'm like, these days I don't really vibe with that. I don't really like consider using superstition and dogma, as he would not like it be called, religion, for those kinds of topics. That's all we have, right? If we can't use actual logic and experiments and the physical evidence, then we have to go with metaphysics. And maybe it's just I'm not educated enough, which I'll 100% agree with. I'm never educated enough, but to think that we got to use dogma and non-logical things for our soul or whatever, nah, I'm just not there anymore. Maybe I'm just old and jaded, but nah. And then the whole question of like, well, then where do we get our justice from, right? Where do we get morality from? We get that from logical stuff, I guess, justice, law, experience, human rights. It can't be from dogma and religion. That stuff, that superstition, nah. And that may be a little harsh, but that's where I'm at right now in life. I'm just being honest about it. But yeah, this is the first chapter where I'm kind of breaking away from some of his arguments. We'll see. Anyways, that is the week, my week of reading. Now, at the end of these things, I was thinking of introducing a thing for the next week, which would be a little entry in a book called The Book of Questions. And the first question of the week, number one, is, that's pretty rough. Technology has become part of us. Would you rather lose the use of all motorized vehicles, all telecommunication devices, and computers, or one of your hands? I'll answer that next week. But yeah, let me know what you think of this whole entire reading journal, where I can help and fix it up a little bit. I still don't even know how to edit this. I'm going to go learn how to edit this right after this. So yeah.